The JBL Quantum 910 is the latest fully featured gaming headset from JBL, and this one really has it all. Dual wireless, active noise cancelling, surround sound, it even has head tracking built into the headset. At $500 Australian or $300 US, it isn't exactly cheap, although given everything it does, it is competitively priced compared to its rivals. Its core features and sound quality are based on the Quantum 810, which is already a great headset that costs $350 Australian or $200 US. So the question here is, are the new features really worth the additional cost? Okay, as usual, let's look at the technical specs first. The 910 has large 50mm neodymium drivers. It weighs 420 grams. It uses a 2.4 GHz wireless connection for gaming and a Bluetooth 5.2 connection for Bluetooth devices. You can use both at the same time to connect two devices simultaneously as well. It has active noise cancelling, and it has a variety of surround sound features such as JBL Quantum Sphere 360 and spatial sound with head tracking. And I'm going to talk about its surround sound capabilities in more detail later in the video. Battery life is quoted at a maximum of 39 hours, and it only takes 3.5 hours to charge. As usual with these types of headsets, the battery life depends on what features you have turned on, so here's how it breaks down. With the lights turned off, using either the Bluetooth or 2.4G connections by themselves, I found this is where you get close to the 39 hours. Running both simultaneously seems to half that time, and turning on noise cancelling reduces it further still. With all of the features turned on, I get about 10 hours of playback on average. Based on my testing, using spatial sound didn't seem to have a noticeable impact on battery life. I can't say that it doesn't impact it at all, but I didn't notice a big drop in performance while using it. The battery is charged using a USB-C connection, and you can charge and play at the same time. The headset will also turn itself off to save power after a few minutes of inactivity, and then turn itself back on when you pick them back up. Now, there are 3 variants of the 910, although it's worth noting that they're not all available in every region. In Australia, we only have the base model, but in the US and the UK, and some other regions too, there's also a white 910p for the PlayStation and a green 910X for Xbox. They all cost the same, and they all work wirelessly with PC, Mac, Switch, PS4 and PS5. The only outlier is the Xbox, which needs the 910X to work wirelessly. However, you can use both the standard 910 and the 910p with Xbox using the supplied 3.5mm audio cable. The 910 is based on the design of the 810, and in terms of appearance and comfort, they're very similar. The main visual difference between the two is the additional lights in the 910. On top of the illuminated logo and ring, it also has an additional strip at the bottom. You can control these lights independently from the software, such as changing the color and animation. It would have been nice if you had full control over which lights were on and off, like being able to only have the logo lit up, but if more lights are what you wanted from a headset, then the 910 has got you covered. If you don't like the lights, you can turn them off and save a bit of battery life. The other differences are minor. The headband has a different pattern and embossed logo and a slightly matte finish. The ear cup design is almost exactly the same, except that it has a dark gloss finish, and the L and R lettering inside is a little bit brighter. Otherwise, not much has changed here. The yoke design is identical and it still rotates 180 degrees. The arrangements of the buttons is also identical, although activating Bluetooth is now done by pressing forward on the power switch. The button that was previously used for Bluetooth is now used to toggle spatial sound and the head tracking on and off. The chat mix dial can be used to mix game and chat audio on PC, but it's also compatible with Discord. This means that you can use it to mix the chat audio levels on your Xbox or PS5, which is a feature that has traditionally been reserved for headsets with a separate mix amp. The dongle supports both USB and USB-C via an adapter. The footprint is reasonably compact compared to other JBL headsets, but I'd still like the size of the dongle to be smaller. Also, just like the 810, the 910 is a comfy headset. They're one of the heavier in its class, but I never found this to be an issue. There's a ton of flex in the headband, and both the headband and the ear cups are nice and squishy. The leatherette memory foam can be a little warm, so if you live in a hot climate, you might want to bear this in mind. Just like the 810 and the 800 before them, the 910 is a warm, bass-forward sounding headset. From what I can tell, they use the same components, and they sound very similar if not exactly the same. You can of course change the EQ settings via the Quantum Engine software. This has a bunch of different presets to choose from, including a preset specifically designed for if you find wearing headsets for extended periods fatiguing. By default it's set to flat, but you can make your own custom levels too if none of JBL's presets impress you. The software is PC only at this stage. There is a Mac app, which is most welcome, that'll let you update the firmware, but it doesn't do anything else apart from that. If you're having issues updating the firmware on PC, as the software can be temperamental, you might want to give the Mac updater a go. Something new added in the software, at least I think it's new since the 810, is the ability to modify the side tone in the Quantum engine. This allows you to hear yourself talk by feeding audio from the mic back into the headset. It was desperately needed and again is very welcome. Here's what the mic sounds like when connected via the dongle. You'll typically find with a wireless headset that the microphone quality is heavily dependent on the wireless signal. For reference, this is what it sounds like when connected directly to my Mac using the supplied cables. Overall, I think the mic is perfectly fine. The passive noise isolation, like all of JBL's other headsets, is really powerful, and turning on ANC definitely blocks out a bit more. It's not the most powerful ANC I've used so far, but if you enjoy feeling like you're in your own little sound bubble, then the 910 delivers a very intimate experience. If a wider soundstage is your preference, then these are probably not going to suit you. Spatial sound is definitely an interesting feature. It's JBL's own 3D audio solution, and it's the first to be built into a wireless headset that includes head tracking. In my testing, I found the results to be kind of hit and miss, but it's mostly positive. Okay, so on the positive side, I think it does a really outstanding job of making it sound like you're in a 3D space. Maybe more so than any other headset that I've used. The trade-off is that the sound quality can take a bit of a hit. This seems to be highly dependent on the game though. So for example, in Hunting Grounds, it's a real game changer. It takes the baseline audio and wraps it around your head in a way that feels natural. On the other hand, I found it borderline unusable for the Order 1886. This game seems like it would be a good candidate for surround sound, but the game's audio, which doesn't sound fantastic to begin with, sounds really awful with spatial sound on because it just emphasizes its shortcomings. It makes the high ends incredibly shouty, and it's uncomfortable to listen to for anything more than 5 to 10 minutes. Playing around with the EQ settings, I was able to make it less harsh, but then it sounded muffled when spatial sound was turned off. A mobile companion app that lets you switch between EQ presets on the fly would have been nice here. It's worth noting that the Order 1886 is an outlier. Most games that I tested that don't have great audio weren't nearly as bad as this. If you're not on PC or PS5, then I think more often than not that this is going to be a great feature. You just might need to play around with the levels and do some fine tuning before hitting the sweet spot. For PS5 owners, it's a nice to have, but not a feature worth buying the headset for. The head tracking feels like witchcraft. It orients the sound to come from the direction of the screen, so that if you turn your head, sounds that should be directly in front of you start coming from the side. I didn't personally find a use case for this in my setup, but I can see how it might be useful if you frequently turn your head to look at another screen. If nothing else, the tech performs exactly as advertised. It's pretty hard to fault the Quantum 910. I don't think it's the best sounding headset in its class, but all of its features deliver on their promise, making it extremely versatile. The new 3D audio features are pretty damn impressive, and for Switch, Xbox and PS4 owners, it's competitively priced. It's also a lot more plug and play than some of its rivals. There's no base station or amp with additional cables to worry about, just plug in the dongle and you're ready to rock. If you're in the market for a simple plug-and-play surround sound headset with a bunch of other useful features, then the JBL Quantum 910 is a great option.